to try this with your team, the team of ACI, would make a difference. So I'd like you to write down 2 ideas, please. If you were to start doing this with your team, yeah. This would be a start. Yeah, I would think of this list. If there's 2 off this list, or if this list has caused you to think of something else, just 2 ideas that would enhance your working relationship with your ACI team. Yes?
Genuine.
Yeah, anytime. Yes. Yes, it's things that you can, so I'm just going to bring everyone together. So it's things that you can do, right? It's things that you can do. So everybody has their 2 written down? Everyone has their 2? I'm going to bring us all back together if possible. We will have a break in 30 minutes. We're going to have a break in about 30 minutes. So one of the things I find most interesting when we do these sessions is that I flick my pen, which I know I'm not supposed to. I've been told numerous times, I apologize. The one thing I find about these sessions is for many of you, you're on your feet all day moving, so I appreciate you sort of sitting. It's a little bit different for many of you, and I understand that. For those that sit at their desk in more of the home office, it may not be as much, but I understand the difference between sitting. So we will get a break in about half an hour, which I think knowing sometimes just makes a difference. Get some coffee and get snacks. How's that sound? Sounds good. Excellent. It's true, when you don't sit all day, it's a different thing to sit in a session all day. It truly, truly is. I mean, we need to recognize that, right? So when we start talking about an awareness and we start looking at the awareness of our audience and what we're doing, even those types of things make a difference, right? It's just understanding who the team is and who you're talking with. So this is the fit professional. I understand that this is something you've seen before. Yes, no, maybe so. Grit?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, but it was like the last corporate.
It's blurry?
I don't remember it as much.
Okay. So it's new to me, so I'm going to do my best. If there's something that you would like to interject about it, because I've presented it not exactly as you would expect, I'm open to that as well, because it's your idea. I'm just trying to bring the grit concept and the concept of civility together. How does that sound? Good? So the G stands for, everyone? Great. So it's the propensity to seek and consider new ideas, additional alternatives, different approaches, and fresh perspectives. So the idea that's actually written up there, the word that really interests me in that growth concept is the idea to seek and consider. So when someone comes with a new idea, it's not an automatic no, right? I hope there's nobody named Tammy here. Tammy comes with an idea, and I always say no. You know, Dawna in school in English equated not great marks, right? So it's just the concept of one thing doesn't always lead to another, right? So regardless of who the person is that's bringing you the idea, regardless of maybe how it is presented, right? Because we all like things presented in different ways. Maybe someone's got a great idea, but they maybe haven't thought it through as much as you would like, or maybe they've overthought it for what you need. The concept is to seek and consider, right? That's how we have growth. And you are a growth opportunity. I believe you design and create your own tiles. Okay? Yes? Maybe, but as a company, that's what you do? That's pretty neat. Like, I didn't know tile companies did that. I just thought there was other companies that did that, right? So I think that's something very unique and different. I always say that there's more than one way to solve a situation. And I often find that in life we think that there's one way to drive to work, there's one way to get to the airport, there's one way to buy groceries. We become very, very consistent. If you go to the grocery store, you might do the outside aisles, you might do up and down the rows, you might start at the left, you might start at the right. Fair? So if we continuously take that idea that's the only way to do something at work, we really miss those growth opportunities, right? We miss the growth opportunities for the company, but actually I kind of look at it that I'm missing growth opportunities for myself because I'm not learning a new way to do something. So those of you who say there's only one way to do something, there is certain times there's only one way to do something. Someone has a heart attack, there's one way to do it. In Salesforce, my understanding of when I had to work in it was that sometimes there's only one way to enter information or it doesn't work. So there are certain times in life when there's that only one way to do it, but many other times there's many different ways to present, right? To a clientele, there's many different ways to talk to a customer, but the concept of it would be the word like being genuine, transparent. We all have our own styles, right? We all have our own, it doesn't matter which department within the organization you work, we all have our own styles, but we need to always look at there's different approaches and different ways to do things, right? Sounds good? Resilience, to respond constructively and ideally make good use of all kinds of adversity, right? So what is something adverse that's happened that someone would want to share in the workplace? I missed it.
Salesforce.
Oh, the Salesforce.
Specified on a project and now you can no longer be made.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So what I think if I heard you say was the idea that on specs for a project, they wanted product A, and product A can no longer be made. So therefore, it's not available?
Correct.
Discontinued. And the designer probably only wants product A, right?
They don't know yet.
Oh.
I hope it gets on.
But that happens in life, right? You tell someone something, things happen, adversity, right? Those are the things. What are types of adversity? Have you had, there was a number, is it common to have this many new people start? Past year, okay. So sometimes the adversity of bringing on new staff members, it's an important part of the team growing, but can also be adverse because you have to spend time with them, bringing them on board, getting them into the culture of the company. It can take time. So for some people, they may find that challenging, and for other people, it's like, it's great, let's do it, right? All about that mindset up here. So the idea is to respond constructively. So when there is a challenge, my theory always is that when we start talking about accountability, it's the idea that, okay, there's a problem. I know that I can do it one way to solve it, but I always like to challenge myself and say, is there other ways to solve a problem? Is there, or a situation? So when you start actually thinking that situation A has occurred, I'm going to come up with 3 different ideas to try and solve it. It actually expands that kind of concept, right? So when we start looking at resilience, we can actually start thinking bigger, coming up with new ideas, and then we come up with the final recommendation that we're going to make to the client, to our supervisor, to our team. Because sometimes when we only allow ourselves to come up with one idea, we miss a better idea. Fair to say? So that's really that ability to respond to those kind of challenging situations. And they happen all the time. Intuition. How many of you would rate yourselves as to kind of get that gut feeling? So some of us just make gut decisions, right? There's something in our gut, something bothering me, I don't know what's going on. Something's happening, and we kind of go in that gut to the right goals in the best and smartest ways. But sometimes we just have that intuition that there's something not working. You don't really know what it is. If you know that there's your team and things seem to be working, but you don't know what it is, it takes a lot of confidence to sit down your team and say, let's try and make this work. I don't know what's going on. We're not in the same harmony as we used to be. It's kind of the concept of sort of, we talk about civility. It's about an awareness that something's not working. And instead of just shoving it under the carpet, let's just talk about it in a nice manner. Let's not blame anybody. Let's talk about the facts, and then we can kind of get down to solving what the situation is. My theory is that when someone comes to me on a team that there's a problem, we take away the person's name. It's not that Dawna did this or Dawna did that. It's like this person, the customer service person gave this answer. The customer service person gave this answer. The salesperson said this. This person said that. I take away the names, and we just specifically look at facts. And if you start using names, I'm going, well, I'm not interested in having the conversation. I just want to talk about the facts, and I want to talk about the roles, because maybe the process no longer works. So you need to just have those we talk about a fit professional. It's looking for the best and smartest ways to do that. And I find sometimes taking out the personal names in a conversation can really allow us to change that, right? Because we get down to the facts. And tenacity. Who has just a huge goal that they'd like to share? It could be a work goal or a personal goal in the room.
I don't have a college degree, and I'm currently trying to get my associate's.
Wonderful. take?
I take 2 classes at a time, so if I take 4 years, but I just want to have it.
Yeah.
I'm with you in solidarity on that. I'm doing the same thing right now.
Good for you.
Online class with my best friend.
So we start talking about tenacity. It's the commitment to stick with something and be persistent, right? So even with Salesforce, for those of you that have kind of just said, we're going to make this work in your head, you've said you're going to make it work. This is that part of the grit, the tenacity. You're going to commit to it. You're going to stick with it. You're going to make it work. If you've kind of fallen off the bandwagon with Salesforce, because my understanding is it's not going away, you guys, right? It's not going away. It's sort of like if you had to eat your broccoli at home, it's still going to show up on your plate. You might as well start to learn to like it. And I use that analogy because that's kind of a good analogy, right? We don't always like something when it starts, but we can grow to like it. We need to have a way of sticking with it and going with it and sort of taking the approach of looking at it. Because if you tie the grit concept to Salesforce, and I'm using that because I think it's your biggest challenge, your biggest change in the last year, right? You kind of take the concept and how you're applying your concepts of Salesforce to these 4 components. You might figure out if you're on board or off board, right? And you can kind of relate to it how you get back on board with it. Because if you get on board with it, it's going to make life a little easier. Trust me, I find Salesforce a challenge. I find it a little finicky to use. But I think once you get used to it, you kind of get past that, right? When I was learning it, I found it a little finicky, but you can get past that. Okay. Yes. So what I would like us to do. Okay. So once again, it's all about connecting the dots, right? Life is about connecting the dots. It's the connecting the dots when you're talking with a client, when you're talking with a coworker, you're talking with your friends. It's connecting the dots. So it's great that you have a concept of the fit professional, like the GRIT, but it's a concept that we're here today to explore is the idea of that concept of civility, right? The awareness, making conscious efforts. How do you see the two fitting together? So I'm going to put up the definition, the civility definitions again, just because I know you haven't memorized them, and I don't expect you to, ever. It's more the concept of understanding them, right? It's not a definitions test, it's the concept of understanding them that we're here today. So I'd like you to think about how these connect. So in the same groups that you are in, I would like you to think about grit, and I'll write grit, I'll write it up here, and civility. How does that sound? So how can you connect the dots? A couple of ways to connect the dots between the 2 ideas.